Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the Big Movement Podcast. Today we have Vanessa Shaw, who is a sought-after speaker and expert on business mastery, personal leadership, and helping people to develop 6- and 7-figure income strategies. She's also the creator of the boutique business model and the Big Bold event that helps her unleash that zone of genius to help women entrepreneurs truly do something that they're passionate about. So we're going to dive in and learn more about this, of how she's making a difference in the world and helping people unleash that genius. So Vanessa, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me as well. It feels really good to be here.
Oh, definitely. So how did you get into this world? Because everyone has a journey, a story of how they arrived where they are.
Absolutely. So I always said there's kind of like two versions to this. The truth is, from as far back as I can remember, it's probably a young age of about 9, I had this instinctive desire to want to grow my own business. And I had no idea what that meant and what it was going to be doing or selling. But the one thing I did know is it had to be a business that made a difference in people's lives. And so, fast forward quite a few years after that, I'd actually been a stay-at-home mom supporting my husband in his global career. He worked for the United Nations actually for 30 years. And I was at home bringing up the kids. I was chief domestic officer back in those days. And I was ready to return to the workplace and was looking for that next thing for me. And I got into life coaching. That's really how I got my business started. And somebody had said to me, you should train to be a coach. I was living in Switzerland at the time. I didn't know that you could sort of get paid for that kind of a thing. And then I discovered this whole, mega industry, of course, this day of coaching. And I trained as a coach. And originally, that's what I was doing. I was a life coach, and I was actually specializing on helping women lose weight, get in shape, feel fabulous, and build their self-esteem. And that was the very first phase of my business, getting it off the ground. And then later, I actually got a corporate contract from that. I mean, obviously there were quite a few steps in there that I'm skipping over, but essentially I was brought into a major law firm in Europe and found myself working with executives around peak performance and stress management and resiliency. And again, it was a lot about keeping themselves in shape as well, and paying attention to all areas of their lives. And that really led me to, then question who were the people that I just really loved to work with the most, because at this point I had a lot of experience, a lot of different things, but I honestly didn't really have a niche, so to speak. And I discovered that it was the people that were the go-getters, the rainmakers in the law firm, the people that would really make things happen and bring about change. Those were the people that I loved to work with. And that caused me to shift my focus into actually working with entrepreneurs.
No, interesting. It's quite the journey there, because people have unique paths. It's something where you don't hear a cookie cutter approach. It's not like everyone you talk to is, well, I woke up one day and decided I'm leaving the corporate world. I'm doing something on my own. Everyone has different motivations of what takes them from where they are to where they want to be at.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Mine was, as I say, honestly in the early days was a really following just a passion to help people. I mean, that's all it was. And so that passion to help people was pretty much across the board. And then I started to realize as well, I mean, through some of those lessons that I was learning through, taking on my own clients and growing my business. In fact, what happened, Byron, in there is I'd been working with this law firm for several years, and I had it was one major client, and I'd been able to grow my own business inside of their business, so to speak. But anyone that's in business for themselves knows that when you have one major client, you are incredibly vulnerable. And I lost the contract after several years and realized that I didn't know. There was an awful lot I didn't know now about building my business and replacing that client and taking on more. But what I started to discover through my own journey is my own struggles of needing to rebuild a business, and I almost went bankrupt in the process, and it was a very humbling time. Well, I realized I wasn't alone. I realized that there was an awful lot of small business owners, solopreneurs like myself, coaches and consultants that are passionate about what they do, want to help people, have that desire to make the world a better place, but lack the business skills. And how do you get better clients and and fill your practice or fill your business? And so it was that part there that started to really reshape the business that we've been actively in now for the best part of the last 5 years.
And that is powerful because you have that story, that why of helping people. Because you think about how many entrepreneurs are in that same situation where they have that one major client, like I'm set, I have this one major one. Like, yes, that's kind of like Superman juggling kryptonite. It's not a good idea.
Yes, totally. And again, I thought it was me, right? When we're going through those sorts of, disasters in our lives, I mean, I really thought, oh my gosh, I'm not cut out for this. There must be some secret that, I haven't been given for business. And as I say, it was a very, very humbling time because I'd landed a big corporate deal fairly early on in business and then lost it. So it was very humbling. But then it was very enlightening to realize that, yes, I'm not alone. Other people have, said they wanted to grow a business and found themselves with just one major client, which means that they're completely trapped. Or alternatively, they're just not able to get that consistent cash flow and clients coming through the business, or oftentimes, working so hard, like really, really, really long hours, never having a break. And so they haven't got a business. They've actually got, probably a poorly paid job. And so that's the piece that inspires me. I mean, I love working with people that make a difference. But I really understand their pains and their struggles because it doesn't feel that long ago that I was there myself.
Right. And the time flies really fast where you look up and realize, oh, there went a year, or there went 6 months, or there went 5 years.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does. I mean, as I say to you, when I said even now that we're coming up for almost 5 years on this, it's like, wow, and we've had massive growth. I mean, that's 5 years actually on a new continent. Because one of the pieces that I left out of that story there was after I'd lost the corporate contract, I'd started to build up my own business again in Europe, and then asked myself the question of what is it that I really want? What's going to make me feel excited to get out of bed every single day? And at that point, I realized that I wanted to make another big move. And so I moved my family from Europe to the States. It was a dream of mine, probably for about 5 years at that point. And I said, I really want to be in the States. I feel pulled to being there. So the business that we're in now, whilst it's a new direction, it's actually on a new continent. I mean, it's a complete, we started from scratch, not knowing anybody, zero clients, zero contacts. I didn't even have my support system because here I am now living in Arizona, whereas previously I was living in Switzerland.
And that's quite the adjustment, but it's a powerful story because you think of how many people that can relate to it, where they are leaving the corporate world or they're leaving whatever they were doing behind and venturing into something new where they don't have that infrastructure to rely upon. It's like, okay, I have my idea. Now what?
It's so true. It's so true. And I mean, again, I think a lot of people as well, when they, either leave corporate or they're setting up their business for themselves, right? A lot of people say, they're after that freedom and autonomy. And we do start to realize very quickly that, freedom does not come immediately. It's not an overnight thing. And whilst it can feel great to be doing your own thing in the early days, when the money's not coming in at the rate or you're not growing quickly enough, we realize that we, as you say, crave that support, those systems and that structure. And so for me, when coming over here to the States, I mean, everything that I knew in terms of systems support and structure had been completely turned on its head. I didn't even have a driver's license. I had to go through the process of getting a green card and setting up a business. And then when you're looking to get help in the business and you've got, I didn't have any relationships even here in this part of the States. I mean, I had perhaps a handful of people that I knew on the East Coast, and that was it. So it was a real, time in my life of a complete blank canvas, and really rewriting my future and recreating a brand new business.
And that's important because people have to understand that it's a process, because we live in that world where we think everything is an overnight success, but people don't realize there's this process, this journey that everyone goes on, and it's different. For some people, it might look like, wow, they just appeared overnight and had all this massive success, but they didn't look at the prequel to the story where they worked odd jobs and things to follow their passion for 5 to 10 years until they got to that point.
Oh, absolutely. And, that's kind of music to my heart, ears rather, to even have that conversation, because I think, especially now with the internet and marketers online and everything, we can easily be misled into thinking that, you do this one or two magic things and it all miraculously falls into place. The reality is, in any business, it's just like in life, it's going to be messy. There's tons of moving parts. There's only so many hours in the day. And there's an awful lot of work that goes into, as you say, behind the scenes, and also those years beforehand. I mean, I had 5 years where, again, we were still doing relatively well. I mean, nothing compared to how we're doing today. But I think about now, and I look back, had I not had those first 5 years, there would just be a massive foundation that I wouldn't have in my business today, because it was a huge learning curve. And particularly for somebody like me, I said to you earlier, I came from being a stay-at-home mom. It wasn't as even if I'd been working or in corporate, right, for those 10 years prior to setting up my business. So there was just a ton of change, many things to learn and to take on.
And it's important because we all go through this growth to get there. And it's just part of the journey, that your background of everything you went through, it created that appreciation, so that when you look at your business the way it is now, it's like, it was worth it, because would you be doing the same thing if there was not that sense of struggle to get there? Because you think about growth, it comes from some form of struggle. It's not like you just wake up one morning and go, I'm going to grow today, and poof, you do it.
Yeah, right.
It'd be nice, but that's not how it works.
And, the struggle, I agree with you. I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's and often a lot of struggle, but then it feels really good, because then you've got something that you really look back and you're proud of. I mean, at the end of the day, trite as it may sound, we learn an awful lot more from our failures than we do from our successes. We just came out of a 3-day event with our clients. We host like 3 live business intensives with them throughout the year. It's kind of like core touch points in a program. And so many of them are in a hurry to grow their business that they're looking at all the things that are wrong. They're looking at all of those things that, where they know they need to improve, and rushing past the progress and like the celebrations that they could be, having along the way. And as I will say, you've got to stop and look at that, because that, as you said, that process of growth, there's been a lot of struggle, sometimes a lot of resistance, a lot of soul searching to get to those next breakthroughs, and they're really worth celebrating and acknowledging before we go on to that next piece.
It is. That's what you have to do. I like to compare the journey in business to running like a 5 or 10K race. In the beginning, you're sitting on the couch and said, I want to do that. The first run, there's no other way of putting it, it's going to suck. Because you've never done it before, everything's awkward, and you're winded after the first 5 minutes. But then later on the journey, after you've done the races and you're moving towards let's say running a half marathon, you look at a 5K and go, that's easy now, because you've gone through that. And it's the same thing in business.
Absolutely. It is true that, and let's face it, right, sometimes with even running that first marathon, there's the excitement, right, as well. That sort of, this looks like a great idea. I'm going to get fit, I'm going to get in shape, it's going to feel really good. And then we start to embark on it and we realize just what it takes.
Right.
The training, the resources, I don't feel like doing this anymore. Like that seemed like a really good idea when I was sat comfortably on the couch or when I was, watching those people, getting to the finish line. But now when it's really confronts you and you have the challenges of, clients that, aren't showing up or payments that aren't going through or team members that aren't doing, the right thing, doesn't always feel as glamorous as we think it is from the outside. And I think people could really benefit from, keep managing their expectations. It's like having the real stories, understanding the real stories of what goes on behind most businesses, to realize that most people aren't running businesses, either sitting on a yoga mat meditating or, running their beach laps, from the beach laptop lifestyle. We see this all over the internet.
Right.
And of course, yes, you will get those moments, absolutely, but you're certainly not going to get them right in the very early days of when you're just setting out.
Right. Exactly. It's all part of that journey. So when it comes to growing a business, especially since you started here with zero contacts and just nothing there, what is it that business owners or the entrepreneurs should be doing in the beginning when it's like, I have my idea. Now, how the heck do I get people to find me?
Absolutely. Marketing 101. And, my advice and guidance on marketing is really stick to those things initially that that you can do. I think too many people dive in with I'm going to go online and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And they don't realize that there's a lot of technicalities and new skill sets that need to be built. When I first came to the States, I would just go out and network. I was networking here within the first 2 weeks of arriving, and I was looking at business groups and social groups and just getting out to meet people and connect and find out, who are the connectors, who are the influencers. And then I quickly got myself, speaking engagements. I said, as a business coach, as a service-based business, I've got valuable, expertise and content to offer. So I would just find myself, and back then relatively small speaking gigs because of course I was completely unknown. So, people were like, well, who are you? We've never heard of you before.
Right.
But just to be able to share, really give value to an audience. And I find that the face-to-face building the relationships and interactions are so much more powerful than trying to do it through lengthy email campaigns and going online and all of those other moving parts, at least in the early stages, right? Because we can test our ideas, we can have those conversations with people, and we can see their body language, we can see how they react to our message, we can see when we talk about whatever it is that we're doing, do their eyes glaze over, do they look confused? Or is it all of a sudden resonating and they're sort of saying, hey, tell me more about that. So for me, there's always that direct feedback of when we're with a person face to face, which is really important. And that's, that was how I built my business and, got my very first clients to get the business off the ground. And of course, we have a lot more sophisticated marketing strategies these days. But that was the basis of how we got started. It was simple things, conversations, lots of coffees, meetings, lots and lots of just getting out and about and meeting with people. And within I'm just trying to think, within 90 days of me being on a brand new continent, with, being a completely unknown, I had paying clients.
That's excellent, because people have a tendency to overcomplicate simple solutions to problems. We look at the success people are having, let's say with online marketing, think, I've got to use this right away and build these big elaborate systems. But what they don't realize is that if you would turn back the clock and see where someone started at, it was pretty darn basic. And it goes back down to, someone said it once, don't compare your chapter 1 to someone's chapter 10. I
love that. Yes, it's so true. That's a great expression. If I may, I'm going to steal that one and borrow it because it's so true. And I said, I didn't have a website. In fact, well, I did have a website, but it was completely out of date. It was very messy and all mixed up from the previous work I'd been doing in Europe, which was all in transition. Byron, I didn't even have business cards when I came here, and I couldn't even get business cards because initially I didn't even have a cell phone. So, when I say to people, it's like you really are overcomplicating it. I just went out, I found out where people were, congregating and turned up there and just had conversations. I mean, that was it.
Right. I tell people all the time that you don't have to have a business card, you don't have to have a website. All it comes down to is, can you communicate the solution you provide to your audience? And that's it.
That is it. And I totally agree. And the good thing is, if you don't even have business cards, it meant that I had to follow up with people anyway, because I simply didn't have them to give, hand out. So it became a great part of a conversation. And
Right.
yeah. And people
I
still remember me from then. There's people I still bump into now, and they will remember when I first arrived here.
yeah.
Because I didn't have business cards, and because I said, well, I've just arrived from Europe, so I need yours.
Right. And the funny thing is, most of the time I do not carry business cards with me, and it's not because I don't have them. It's more because I just value the relationship, and if I want to give my information out, it's because I want there to be some type of rapport. It's not just, oh, here, call me. And 9 times out of 10, what happens to that card is it goes into either the big abyss of business cards that never gets followed up with, or I suddenly find myself on somebody's list of whatever, like, why am I getting emails about this stuff?
Yes, yeah. I never signed up for this. I don't need new air conditioning now.
Right. Yeah, like, no, I don't need that. But this is what happened. So I said, well, let me do an experiment. What if I stopped carrying them intentionally? And it worked great, because now people are focused on the relationship, and I can always judge right away, do I want to give my information out? Because if you think about the whole notion of a business card, it was really created at a time before we had smartphones and mobile phones in general. When this, you'd have a Rolodex in your desk, so you can go through a little card file and say, oh, here's the person that does blank.
So true.
And now when you think about it, you don't really need to use it. Like, oh, you want some of the information? Let me just give it to you on your phone. Ta-da, there it is. Now you have it. Versus it goes into a stack, and then you look back later, who is this person? Because if I meet somebody out networking, of course I put their information in my phone. But then what I love to do is use Evernote and just make a little bit of a note. I talked to this person about such and such. Follow up with them on XYZ tomorrow. So then later on, I can look back at my notes. Okay, here's the follow-up I need to do. What was that conversation like? Oh, yeah, I remember that person. Instead of I look at a card, okay, why do I have this again?
Yeah, what were we talking about?
Right. So I find it's more effective because it's more personal that way. And you're not just trying to pass them out to everybody. Like, I handed out 50 business cards. I got 50 back, but I don't know who any of the people are.
And now I don't know what to do with them.
Right. I make it a point, if I go to an event, my goal is to talk to 5 people. That's it. But they're meaningful conversations.
Yeah, quality, not quantity, is also a real lesson, that people need to learn. I mean, I totally agree with you. Part of the boutique business model that I created, and that's what we help a lot of our clients build, these sort of boutique style businesses. And it doesn't mean, that they're actually a boutique with with a storefront, but it's just that they're really going for quality over quantity of clients and customers and creating an experience for them. And so based on that, it's like if you go to an event or networking, you don't need to come back with pocketfuls or purses full of business cards. As you say, it could be those 2 to 5, great contacts that you're now going to nurture and build some great relationships that can really yield an awful lot, over the months and years to come.
Right. Exactly. It's what you have to think about is a different mindset, because when people are growing their business, there's this paradigm shift where people have to go away from the notion, I can help everybody, to I'm only going to focus on this handful of people here. because you have to overcome that notion, that fear of missing out, which is
Oh,
what happens to so many people.
and yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the big mindset shifts. So I even said to you, at the time when I was sort of transitioning my own business, one of the big realizations that I had was that I really didn't have a niche. And, not only, and so it was sort of thinking, well, who is that audience that I, wanted to work with? And I'd, started off with some of these mums in the weight loss world and women that were, primarily at home. And then I'd shifted to a major law firm. So, because they're very, very different needs. And then in between, I was attracting just a whole load of other clients that just had multiple different needs, from sort of life coaching through to business coaching. And as I say, my big realization was, wow, I just don't have a niche. So it's very, very difficult to market to these clients. But then even inside of that, I hadn't identified who would be the best clients. If I could fill my business with just ideal clients that are really best, what would they look like? And that started to open up this, very, very different conversation and paradigm shift in my own mind. I mean, I'll be honest with you, back then when I was having that conversation with myself, of course, there was that doubt of, well, would I be able to do that? Is it really, really possible? And then I started to just hang out and be surrounded by business owners that were considerably further ahead than I was, but on the path that I wanted to be on. And I would hear them talking about their clients and these amazing experiences that they were having with them. I was like, wow, it really is possible. I can see evidence out there. And that really, that helped us to build this, the boutique business model around the idea that it's quality, not quantity, right? Really looking at who is the best fit and being okay with, as you say, instead of that fear of missing out, it's actually that we're training our ideal clients to self-select in, and that the clients that really aren't a fit would naturally self-select out. But what it does then is it really means those clients that you're meant to work with, you become actually considerably more attractive to them. Versus, as you say, that fear of missing out when you're trying to stretch yourself too thin and, really go across the board and everything, then you're sort of speaking to everybody, but yet you're speaking to nobody in particular.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. When you focus in, you become the celebrity within that particular industry, that niche, versus just being an average person in the masses. Because too many people, they have to, let's see, just deprogram their mind. When you look at how society is conditioning people, like, oh, don't miss out on this opportunity. This sale, it's a one-day sale. You can't miss out on it. But people want to apply the same thing, that scarcity, to their business, not realizing that there's 7.5 billion people on the planet. You only need a fraction of a percent to have an amazing lifestyle through a business.
Absolutely. Yeah, so true.
Then I like to be sarcastic from time to time and say, okay, let's face it. Even Walmart does not service everybody, so you need to lower that bar a little bit on who you want to focus in on.
It's so true. It's so true. And as I say, it can seem, it seems obvious when we're on the other side of that, but yet it can, of course it feels scary. When we're looking at building, transitioning our businesses and everything. I was working with a client recently, and she's got 5 children. And her husband's a military guy as well, so he's frequently away, and she often doesn't even know where he is. And she's amazing at what she does, but she's completely maxed out. I mean, really completely maxed out. And so she's come to me, at that point where she says, I want to leverage my business, but there's no more hours in the day. I'm just working really hard with all of these clients. And so, we take her through this process of really identifying, who the ideal clients are, who are the best ones, and then how do we sort of turn those into what we call premium clients. We call them in our business champagne clients. It's a fun term that we use. And at the time she said to me, she said, I'm just going to have to trust you on this, Vanessa. She said, because this conversation is terrifying for me right now. And she said, all I'm seeing is clients that are going to be really unhappy with me, or I'm going to have to get rid of certain clients to create this space, to be able to grow this business. And I'm so terrified that I've worked so hard to get to where I'm at now that it's not going to work, and I'm going to end up losing it all. And this really was one of those conversations of, listen, we have done this so many times. We've had this conversation. We know what it feels like. You're not the first person to say this. Like, just lean into my trust, that I know that this can work for now. And I mean, she did. And it's been amazing because, in just a few days, she said, I've decided I can either resist this and struggle, or otherwise I can actually implement what you've just shown me really quickly. And fortunately for her, she went with the quick way. And with that, has already started the process of restructuring her business and, saying goodbye to some clients. But immediately, it's opened up the opportunity for those fabulous clients to come on and work with her. She's already taken on, much higher end, higher quality clients. So, we've also got to walk through that struggle. The growth of growing that business is also knowing how to navigate fear when it comes up, and just understanding that it's not necessarily real. It's not necessarily valid. It's just that we're in that place of discomfort because there's an amazing breakthrough about to happen on the other side.
Right. And that's so important, what you just said there. It's getting over the fear of letting go, because it's that whole growth process that if someone's going to shift their business from just the average client to your champagne clients, they have to change things up, because you can't work with people. Let's say you have a beer budget, but you want the champagne clients. It doesn't work. So you have to raise your standards, because if your brand is focusing in on those premium aspects, well, you want to make sure that your entire energy and focus is there. Versus, all right, we just went from having champagne and caviar to it's Bud Light and chips. It's totally different.
Yeah, totally.
That's the first time I've ever used an analogy like that ever.
It's the first time you probably heard the champagne clients, and funny enough, you're talking about beer budget. I mean, we actually get our clients to segment them into champagne, wine, and beer. And then we do have another category, Byron, that's called vinegar. And like, vinegar shouldn't belong anywhere near the business, because it's like those ones frankly leave a really sour taste in your mouth.
Right. Like, these are the people that you wish them well, but you want to build a fence. Just keep them over there and you're going to be happy.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes even a massive brick wall.
Right. Oh, yes. Like, but why don't you want to work with everybody? Because I don't. And that's the end of the conversation when it comes down to things. You have to decide on where you want to put your focus at. So one of the things I think people struggle with, it's, besides getting clients, it's pricing themselves. When they want to go from, using these terms, let's say the beer budget clients to the champagne clients, how do they adjust their mindset to go from one price point for their services or packages to an entirely different one?
Oh yes, because that obviously does become like the next piece in that puzzle. So one of the things that we really help them see is really understand the value of the services that they offer, and that they're not commodities, that they really are the experts. And if they want to position themselves to be attracting these higher-end clients, well, part of that is how they raise their own game, their own standards, how they show up, their branding, their marketing, their professional materials, and all of those things. But then, of course, it's pricing, because there's still a perception out there, and I think it'll be around for quite some time, that we really do get what we pay for, and that when things are high priced, there's a natural perception that it means it's quality. Now, of course, we all know that that's not necessarily always true. But that's a perception that we can use to our advantage as the service providers, as long as, again, we're talking in integrity here, that you really can deliver on the back side of things. So the first step we go through is really helping people to shift their mindset and getting them to see the value that they offer. And oftentimes that's about seeing that the value that they offer isn't in time. It's not the time spent with the client. It's the results and the transformations that they get from the client. And those results keep having a knock-on effect for months and years to come. It's not a one time and done kind of a process. So, we've got various different tools and processes that we take them through. It's really about value-based pricing. So once our own clients are clear on that, they're already having that conversation in their own head or with me as their coach saying, okay, now I can see I've been seriously undercharging. I need to raise my fees. And one of the places that we'll go to, now this isn't necessarily scientific, but here I'm playing with the, psychology and sort of seeing like where their own comfort zone is. I'll even say to them, well, if you could, what do you think you could get for your services now? Like, where's your comfort level? What would be like a really, really stretch goal that you would just love to charge out at, but at this point in time, you absolutely just don't believe you could, but it's kind of like the fantasy land figure. And then what we're doing is we're getting them to pick a number, frankly, between the two. So it's more intuitive, and it means that it's stretching, but they still believe that they can do it. And so at that point in time, then it's about making the offers to those existing, clients and prospects, and of course, actually selling something at that new level, because their mindset isn't ultimately going to shift until they get to the place where they've got clients saying yes. So I think about, again, a lawyer that we're working with right now. We'd had this conversation, and it was around hourly rates, and they're actually not able to package their fees so that they're still in an hourly rate. And he said, wow, I've been thinking about, I really wanted to raise my fees, to $600 an hour for a long time. Now that I've been working with you, he's been working with us for about 6 months. And he says, now I feel ready. So we work out the whole strategy to, transition actually his existing clients into the new price point as well as all of the new clients coming on. And, he was going through the doubt and the fear and the, oh my gosh, will I lose them? What will they think? Will they be mad at me? And, I saw him this weekend and I said, how's it going? And at this point in time, he hasn't had one person say no.
Wow, that's awesome.
Exactly. Now, again, he's fabulous at what he does. I mean, he's just got an amazing service. He's a real expert. But, and again, that's rare. I mean, I'm giving you an example there that's rare that you don't get any pushback. Because, of course, I joked and I said, oh, perhaps we should have gone a little bit higher.
Right.
Right. But it's mindset, it's always mindset first, and then it's the overall strategy. Then we're looking at the pricing and the products and the overall strategy. And then the third step of that is then it's really making that offer and actually implementing it. I know a lot of people that will talk about some of their service offerings and they talk about their fees, and I'll then say to them, well, how many of you actually sold at that price? Well, I'm still waiting to. Well, it's like, so from a mindset perspective, until it's sold, you really, really don't know that it's possible.
Right. And I think that's where people get stuck at. It's looking at the pricing and the mindset of what's really going to work, because for some people, they have to not only shift the internal mindset, but you have to shift that the external perception. Because with their branding and the people they're attracting, if they've spent the past 3 years, let's say, attracting the beer budget clients, well, if you're going to start offering champagne prices, you've got to change your tribe. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they're looking like, we're just going to go down the street and grab another beer, and that's it. Mm-hmm. They're not going to say, oh, look, pass me the bottle. I want that. They're probably not going to do it.
Mm. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's what it does entail. And so when I hear some other coaches or advisors sort of saying, "Oh, just raise your fees," it's like, no, it's not. It's not quite as simple as that, because sometimes people are giving an amazing service. They're just completely undervaluing what they do, and it really can be as simple as just raising your fees. But more often than not, it could involve, as you say, changing the brand, looking at who they're marketing to, working in, marketing in different circles and looking at, really who they're attracting. And, and most of the time it really involves them changing who they're being themselves.
Right.
So, when we have clients, we say, you want to attract these higher end champagne clients, but you've got to be really honest. Let's have a very honest conversation around how are you showing up? Are you investing in yourself to the level that you would be expecting other people to? Do you show up as a champagne client? Are you paying your invoices on time? Are you, doing your homework, your assignments, showing up on time? Whatever those things are, it's like, how are you really showing up yourself as the champagne client that you want to attract? Because let's make some internal shifts as well, so that you are actually in integrity with attracting that. Otherwise, if you're being honest with yourself, you're always going to know that there's a disconnect, which means somebody else will pick up on that in those conversations. You won't be confident, you won't be powerful when you have a sales conversation. You'll be tempted to, again, discount your fees or give a special deal or whatever it is. So there's often, multiple things that need to change. And I always say the most important for me of those, I love branding and marketing and materials and all of those good things, but I think the most important element of that is the service provider themselves, and really shifting who they are being, up leveling themselves so that they can attract those higher end quality clients.
It's so true, because you have to have that level of evolution inside of your business to offer the services that people see as a premium choice. But then you have to do that inner work as well, because it doesn't do any good if someone spends the money necessary for that premium branding, but the moment someone talks to them on the phone, they think, oh my gosh, no way in the world am I buying from you. Mm-hmm. It has to be in alignment.
Absolutely.
Without it, they're still back at the beginning of the race, like, okay, everybody, I have a cooler of beer, enjoy. You have to move past it. It's such a necessity. So as we begin wrapping things up, because we've talked about so much, it's so critical for an entrepreneur to begin their business, but not only that, to position themselves as the premium choice. What's that one thing you recommend every entrepreneur do if they want to scale their business and attract those champagne clients?
Gosh, what's the one thing? Because the reality is there's many, but and again, this sounds self-serving, and it sort of it is and it isn't. But if somebody really is serious about attracting higher quality clients, really seriously growing their business, and by that I mean their revenues, their profitability, possibly hiring people and team. The one thing I think you have to do is hire somebody, a business coach, a consultant, somebody that's ahead of you, or a mentor ahead of you on the path that you want to go on. And of course, I'm a business coach, so everyone's going to say, right, you'd say that, right? But the truth, and again, it doesn't have to be me, but somebody from the outside can be so objective, can quickly see where those blind spots are, and and flag the traps, right, that you're likely to get into, and help you just cut through the clutter and get real clarity and focus. That's one of the things when people are coming to me and I sort of say, what is it you really need? They'll often say things like, I need clarity, I need focus and direction and a plan. It's like, that's right. So easy. Like, I do that all day long. Like, I can do that for you, right? We just, it's so, that's our zone of genius. And I think that's the place where you shortcut so much. We can look at fancy tools, we can look at gimmicks and all the rest of it, and it's like a one thing to do. But ultimately, you need somebody that's going to be a strategist by your side that helps you to really see that big picture, and somebody that will be really honest with you as well, and call you out when you're being out of integrity, when you're not following through. Hold your feet to the fire. Again, I even think of an example I had to do with a client this weekend when I held her feet to the fire on something that she was fearful of doing, and it had a fabulous outcome, within about 2 hours, and actually translated into about $10,000 of new business, right?
Nice.
So, somebody that though is going to really respectfully hold your feet to the fire. I think that is just the best advice I could get. I certainly wouldn't be in the place I'm at today. We're about to go over $1 million in revenue. And I would never be at this point had I not sought the counsel of great, coaches and mentors along the way, and continuing to invest in that as well.
That is so critical because there's two paths in life when you look at it. You can either try to figure it out yourself, but then you're going to be frustrated and most likely give up along the way, or you invest in yourself and you find somebody, just like you said, who's done it. Because in every path of business, there's always a way to get there. So why take the hard route when someone can show you, follow this recipe, use it as a guide to get there? So it makes it easier for you. Does it mean that there's not going to be struggles? Of course not. But the value is you have someone showing you what to do instead of you look at something, all right, so now what? It eliminates that.
Absolutely.
Which is priceless at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, I think about some of the mentors, Byron, that I had in the early days. And now we're going back, almost 10 years ago, 7 and 8 years ago for sure. And I still, to this day, some of the things that they would have taught me are still influencing my business now, or those nuggets, right, of wisdom or mindset hacks, whatever it might be, they're still relevant today. So, I would have missed out on those opportunities. And yes, they're priceless, because those are the things that keep giving and giving and giving, and you get a fabulous return on investment.
Right, exactly. Because at the end of the day, there's only one guaranteed return on an investment in the world, and that's when you invest in yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the one thing that's going to stay with you until the end of, your days, our days, and it's us. So it's like, it really does make sense to invest in that,
Right.
Other people will come and go, resources, but yeah, you are always central to the business. So I totally agree with you that. And I've, as I say, really done that considerably over the years, not
Right.
just a few dollars, mega amounts, and it's paid off.
Oh, that's awesome. So how can people reach out and learn more about what you do and how you help entrepreneurs create the success they're looking for?
Yeah, great question. So you can definitely find us on Facebook. If you go to Vanessa Shaw Business Growth Mentor, you'll find me there. But the most direct way is actually through our website, which is vanessashaw.com. That's SHAW.com. And once you kind of join us on the website, opt in there. We give you some great freebies, and at the moment we have something called the high-end advantage, which is actually a lot of what we've been talking about today, is those champagne clients and how to package the services, and then create like a red rope policy so that you're really attracting the right people in and keeping the others out. And we give a lot of free resources and audio trainings and videos and things through that site, as well as keeping people up to date on some of the smaller events that we host, when we get, anywhere between 30 and sometimes 150 people in a room for some of our programs and seminars, where again, I can teach you directly how to, double and triple your income, and frankly have a lot more fun in your business, because I think people just aren't having enough fun.
Fun is important, because without it, why do what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. But and why go into business for yourself if you're going to be miserable? So I'm a firm believer in, you may as well get a job, and at least you'll get the time off and the perhaps some weekends free. So we're all about, yes, scaling and growing a business, but let's really have a lot of fun along that journey as well, and be enjoying the fruits that it has to offer.
Right, exactly. Well, Vanessa, I want to thank you for coming on to the Big Movement podcast today and sharing your wealth of wisdom with everybody on how to create success as an entrepreneur, especially when you're building a business, starting off with nothing and scaling it to where you are now.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a great conversation, and really thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.